Good evening, folks. Welcome to tonight's event. Welcome at home and here on St. John's campus. Welcome to the election town hall on post-secondary education. My name is Bill Kavanagh. I'm one of the chairs of the Coalition of Unions. That's a coalition of all of the labor unions and all of the student unions. Before we go on, I do want to do a land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the lands on which Memorial University's campuses are situated are in the traditional territories of diverse Indigenous groups, and we acknowledge with respect the diverse histories and cultures of the Beothuk, the Mi'kmaq, the Innu, and the Inuit of this province. So for context for tonight's town hall, the Coalition of Unions formed about 2 years ago, and the reason why we did that is because we realized as both labor and student unions, we had some communal goals that we could help each other with and work on. And one of the things that we quickly started to see was this foreshadowing of big changes at Memorial University. And we saw that one of the root causes was the funding to this place. And lo and behold, the elephant in the room, there are significant changes happening to Memorial. And one of the things we realized too is that the kind of goal of the coalition, which represents over 20,000 people, students and workers, became broader than the constituent members themselves. It became about the special mandate of Memorial University, a living memorial and a legacy. And the Memorial Act itself generally specifies that this university is here to look after the interests of the province and educating its people. That special mandate is one to the people of the province, as well as the electorate and the taxpayers. So one of the things that we saw that was missing was a real public dialogue. The government makes decisions, the university administration over the years has made decisions, and we felt that there wasn't a big enough and broader public dialogue about these decisions. We thought the current provincial election was a perfect time to do that. And so thanks again to everybody for coming out. Just a couple of housekeeping notes. There are exits down here at the front and 2 at the back. There are washrooms right around the corner on both floors. We're on the second and on the third exits at the back. Without further ado, I think that's all there is on housekeeping. I'm going to turn it over now. I want to introduce briefly our moderator, CBC's host of The Signal, noon hour radio show, Adam Walsh. I'm sure most, if not everybody, knows Adam. And he was thankfully able to be present here, and hopefully we'll actually report on this on his show. So without further ado, I will turn over tonight's proceedings to our moderator, Adam Walsh. And thanks again, Adam, for being here. We appreciate it.
No, thank you very much. I really appreciated the invitation from the Coalition of Unions. So yeah, I'm Adam Walsh. I host The Signal Monday to Friday, lunchtime, Newfoundland, half an hour earlier in Mosa, Labrador. Different topic each day. CBC Radio 1, and we put the show up on YouTube now. It's also available on the CBC Listen app. So that's the advertising part of the evening. I'm your flight attendant. I'm going to try to hopefully keep it to be a calm flight for this evening. We've got from the unions about 5 different topics to get into. So we were talking about questions, how it will work. I'm going to try to drive to mix my metaphor, drive the bus through each one to try to keep us on time so we can stop around 8:30-ish, get to some questions from the floor, which would be great. And keep in mind when you ask questions, if you have them, try to keep them half brief. I mean, I know you'll probably have something to say and with a question. That's completely understandable. But if you take a long time, that's also taking time from someone else. But we will be opening the floor. The way it'll work for time, when I ask a question, each candidate will get 2 minutes or less to answer it. I will also have a follow-up for each person, meant to be short, 30 seconds or less. And then we'll move on to another question. And I'll switch up each time who starts, just to try to keep things fair. And look, we're talking about serious stuff, very important stuff. At the same time, we're just talking. So if we have to reset or something, or if someone has a question while we're doing things, that's totally okay. So, and thank you for coming out for this. I really enjoy these events. Bill, 1, 2, or 3?
2.
All right, we will start with Mr. Daryl Hines, then we'll go with Laura Bell Umba, and then Bernard Davis. But before we start with the questions, just give us each just a little introduction on who you are, where you're running, and like a tiny little bio for folks. So go ahead.
Okay, I guess folks can hear me. That's good. My name is Daryl Hines. I'm a lifelong resident of St. John's, and I've lived in the district of Mount Sion for about 15 years, raised my family, and I'm proud to say my oldest daughter is here tonight as a new MUN student. And, you know, many years ago, I was in the same building too, in its predecessor form, I guess. I've been a community advocate and volunteer. I've chaired school councils in my community. I've also worked in the federal provincial governments for almost 30 years in different departments, federally, provincially, health, education, finance, post-secondary education, etc. So I think I got a good background on the issues. And many years ago, I was also a student advocate. So it's kind of full circle for me to come back. I was a former proud member of the Council of Students Union and led student protests here in this building many years ago. So I proudly stand with that history as well. And I'm standing in the district of Mount Sion for the PC party.
Excellent. Laura Bell Umba.
Hello, can everyone hear me? All right, my name is Laura Bell Umba. I'm running with the NDP party in the district of Mount Sion. Other than that, I am a mom, I'm a community advocate, longtime business owner, former Memorial University student. I have worked in this district. I have been formed by this district in every level of who I am. I've worked in community from the not-for-profit sector to tech to back into the community sector again. I'm the mom to a 6-year-old. I am worked in government for a short bit of time, also worked in media as well.
Bernard Davis.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me? Perfect. Thank you. Thank you to the two people here to my side. They're great people. I had the pleasure of talking with them many opportunities before. I'm Bernard Davis. I'm running in Virginia Waters Pleasantville. I'm a lifelong resident of St. John's. I've had the pleasure of being a Memorial University graduate of a long time ago, 2002. Seems like yesterday when you walk through the doors here, but it's a long time ago. And I'm proud to have graduated from the university. I've been a community volunteer prior to getting in politics, you know, and I'm excited about the opportunities that we have in the province. But more importantly, I love Memorial University and I want it to be successful. And that's why I'm happy to be here tonight to hear the questions and concerns and hopefully give some answers.
Okay. Here we go. Mr. Hines, you're up first. Here's a quote from a couple years ago from the former premier, Andrew Furey. Memorial University has to figure out what it wants to be when it grows up. It has amazing potential, and it too is at a crossroads of whether it wants to be a university for everybody every day, or if it wants to take a different route, unquote. My question, as Newfoundland and Labrador's only university, what is Memorial University's obligation to the people of the province and our Grenfell campus and the Marine Institute, part of fulfilling that obligation? 2 minutes, and I'll give you a 15-second little prompt if you're running out of time.
Look, I remember hearing that quote, and my first reaction as a MUN graduate was I was somewhat offended because I sensed the condensation and disdain when the Premier said that. As a MUN graduate, I don't think that enlightened the public debate and discourse about this facility, this institution. But look, we only have one university. We're not like Nova Scotia with multiple facilities. This has a special place, the history of Memorial University, how it came to be and all that. If anyone's ever read on it, it's very special. And I think it has a special place. It needs stability, I think, in core funding, but I also think strongly that the university needs to get its fiscal house in order. And we also, people in this room and the institution needs to decide what their priorities are, what the institution is going to look like. And when that's done, that comes to government. Because with all due respect to my colleague, the government just went through a K-12 planning process, took 2 years, and that's now mired in controversy about citing citations and how much will be plagiarized, et cetera. So I don't know if I'd bring government in right now. The people in this campus need to decide what the institution is going to look like. And it cannot be driven by the president's office or any kind of agenda. I think there's got to be collectively, the students, postgraduate students, the various unions, teachings, faculty, et cetera.
So how do you marry, as a follow-up, how do you marry that with the president of the Board of Regents making decisions for where this university needs to go for the way forward?
Look, I've always had concerns about governance here. I mean, there was legislation talked about a few years ago that there'd be professor representation, faculty representation on the Board of Regents. Government never acted on it, and I can't speak to that, but it was talked about, never done. You know, I don't think we can be afraid of that. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with having greater representation on the Board of Regents? I mean, that's kind of stuff I don't think I'd be scared of.
Okay, thank you very much. All that was under 2 minutes. We're off to a great start. Orbel Umba, 2 minutes or less, starting with you.
I'm going to start with the quote from the former premier about the university deciding what it wants to be when it grows up and stating, is it a university for everybody and for every day? Yes, it is a publicly funded institution. Education should be accessible to everyone who wants to make it accessible. So yeah, we'll start there. And as in what this should be, if we look back to the history of Memorial University, it is in remembrance of the veterans who fought. So they did want this to be an accessible place for everyone who wanted a post-secondary education in this province. And if we're looking about the future of this province and who wants to go here, I'm thinking about the post-secondary students who are attending it now and the ones coming up in the future. We should make sure that we have it funded in a way that whatever the future of education looks like, it is accessible to those in our province. People in our province should not have to leave to attain a good quality education at an affordable rate with all the things they need in terms of resources, educational staff, and the people who help create a funded, well-running educational system. So what is it going to be when it grows up? It is going to be what it was intended to be, an easily accessible, quality education for the people of Newfoundland and Labrador.
So then when we talk about it being a comprehensive university, what are your thoughts on what has to be kind of put back into that or put into that to have it around a comprehensive university?
I think it needs to be well-funded, and we need to be able to speak to the people who are running the university, not just the high administration, but the staff who are here each and every day, the professors, the custodial staff, the people who are in every part of the labor union that creates this university, and talking to the students about what they need in programming. There is, within the Memorial University Act, certain things that do have to be part of this university in terms of they have to have all instructions of all branches of liberal arts, specialty services for mining and forestry and all other sectors as to why we have different aspects of the university. All those need to be well-funded and not be treated as a commodity. Even though Memorial University is institutional for the economic success of this province, we need to make sure they have the resources to ensure that economic success as well.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Davis, 2 minutes.
Thank you very much. And I would tend to agree with both of my colleagues here at the table. You know, I'm not one for believing that the university has to define what it is when it grows up. I don't necessarily agree with that statement. I do believe there's things that need to happen, of course. We need to ensure that the administration gets that house in order. I think that's important. I think part of that is the university is a living memorial. It has to be accessible to individuals. Those individuals, regardless of need and requirement for finances. That's why you want to put a good student aid system in place, which we're trying to achieve and working towards. But I mean, we need to ensure that this university has fantastic instructors and professors and individuals that work here inside these walls. I know because I was here, seeing how hard they work, how committed they are to the students and the success of those students. And we've got to make sure that the university is centered around the individual experience for students. Like, it's important that individual students' needs are met, and we've got to focus on that. And that's what I would encourage every time I get the opportunity to meet with the administration. That's what I always speak to them about.
So you went here too, right?
I did.
So when, I'm not going to stay in the past the whole night, but when the former premier said that, what were your thoughts, or what do you think about it now?
I think it was in context of, you know, the situation that we were facing from the Auditor General and the errors that were being made at the administrative level at the university. And I think that's where the comments made. I personally wouldn't have made those comments in that way, but I think he was trying to get at the fact of it being, you know, there's some stuff that is not being done by the administration that were being done incorrectly at the time. And I'm hopeful that the new administration here is going to be focused on that. I've had several meetings with them already, or at least two, and they seem to be wanting to make it better. Listening to what the Auditor General, I mean, we thought it was so important. We changed the MUN Act to allow the Auditor General to come in and see what the problems were with respect to the administration in particular.
Okay, thank you very much. Our next question, we'll go with Ms. Umba first on this one. So from the notes, and which is, the notes are great, by the way. Memorial University educates people who fill occupations around this province, but, and these are all just pulled from media reports, right? So like the need now, roughly, recently, 400 nurses, over 400 teachers. This next stat's a couple years old, but it was 130 social workers. There's always a talk about the need for more doctors. So the question, Newfoundland and Labrador faces shortages. Several health professions, including nurses, physicians, social workers, psychologists, all of which are trained at Memorial University. What's your plan, or what are your thoughts around supporting the university and producing skilled professionals that this province needs? And 2 minutes.
So firstly, I want to say that it needs to be a multi-pronged approach. In order to ensure you have skilled workforce in terms of the healthcare professionals that need to graduate to get into the actual workforce, you need to ensure the educators who are in charge of educating them have the resources to do so. And then when it comes to the actual workforce of those who are supposed to be in there, when you have nursing students, social work students, students who are typically in the care industry, working in the field while they have non-paid work terms, while they're still balancing paying for a full course load and then paying for working for whatever other jobs they need to pay for that tuition. You have them being burnt out before they get into the workforce, and the positions they get into aren't full-time positions that they're walking into. They're on contract work, which means they're still trying to figure out how they pay off. As my Minister Davis had said earlier, putting in student debt, when they have student aid, they're accumulating more debt to eventually get into the workforce where they're burnt out before they get into the workforce. The instructors who are supposed to train them do not have the resources, so they're also burnt out, so they're not able to provide the quality of education that the students are paying for. So in order to fill these gaps that we have within the healthcare system, we have to make sure that the university is appropriately funded, that the instructors have the resources necessary, the support staff necessary to fulfill their desire to create a trained workforce, and that the students have the resources, education, financially, to go into the workforce without being burnt out because they have been paid during their work terms for the work that they're doing, providing a much needed resource in our failing healthcare system.
And is it also about expanding numbers, or is it looking at the pipeline for what happens further on down? Or what do you think?
It's both. You need enough seats within the special faculties. We need more nursing seats. We need more seats for the doctors within Memorial University. So you don't have enough seats for a workforce that you're trying to fill. You have people who are having to leave the province in order to get the education. And if they're coming back to this province without full-time jobs, without a guaranteed contract, there is no appeal to come back here. So the university is failing them, and the system outside post-secondary is failing them as well.
Thank you very much. Mr. Davis, 2 minutes.
Thank you. With respect to the needs and the reactions, I mean, one of the things I think is important that was highlighted here about internships. I met with Monsu earlier, maybe a month ago or so now, and they expressed that concern. That's something that we need to look at. I mean, obviously, that's something that I don't necessarily believe needs to happen that way. There's got to be ways, if you're providing services, whether it be nursing or clinical practicums and things like that, we need to be ensuring that those individuals are not being paid for those services, or at least not having to pay for the services to do them, which is something that I said to Monsu at the time that I think is really important. We have a significant amount of opportunity at the university. And I mean, we've got to look at all options to try to expand that. Whether we see issues with the federal government reducing international students coming into the university, those are issues that we have to look at. One of the things that I think is a great partnership is partnership with the private and public college system. There's opportunities for us to have commonality between some of the courses. Maybe you complete a degree here and do some college work, whether it be with colleges in North Atlantic or otherwise, that could help you transition into a different position within the workforce. I think that's an important piece. The university needs to and has started to move in the direction to be more reactive to the needs and wants of the community as well as the economy, which is important. I mean, we need more nurses, we need more doctors, so we need to expand seats in those offerings. You know, that's what we're trying to do. That's what I've been trying to do since I've been there, and I know I haven't been there very long at this point, but you know, that's something that I'm committed to do, and I know our party's committed to do as well.
When you talk about paid work terms, and it's something we need to look at, we were talking to Mansu about it. In a government seat, what does that mean? Something we need to look at. Like, what's the process? Like, something we need to look at. So what's the next bit there for it to become a reality?
So there could be, I mean, obviously that was when Mansu brought that to me.
Yeah.
I went and talked to, it happened that the president of the university happened to be meeting with me 3 or 4 days later. So I did bring it to her attention as well, and something that I said we've got to look at as an option to see if it's something that can be done for those individuals that can support them. You know, I mean, I understand what it's like to be a student. I mean, I graduated from here with about $29,000 worth of student loan debt. That's not the same case it is today. You know, the average student graduates from Memorial University with about $960 of Newfoundland and Labrador student loan debt. That's a far cry from what I graduated with. That's because the student loans program is one of the most generous in Canada. But there's other things that's changed in society as well. Parents and families have been putting away for children's education opportunities in the future. So I could go on a little bit, but I'm
Yep.
sure I get more opportunity.
All right, thank you very much. All right. Moving into the second topic section, public funding.
Adam, I can happy to answer. You're going to skip over me.
Oh my gosh.
I'm happy if you want to miss one, my friend. I'm delighted.
Like I said, it's a very relaxed evening. I'm so sorry. How would you like 2 minutes and 15 seconds for your?
Pause, and you were just, you know.
See, this is what happens when you're in your head about those follow-up questions, and it's like, oh, we're obviously done that, and I
Well,
looked
now
at
you
the
know how you
time.
feel.
Oh, I know. I can't imagine the stress you're all under. All right.
A couple of quick things. We have announced, and you know, over the last number of years, the leaders met with the CFS. We will provide a tuition refund for graduates if you want to stay, work, and live here. Because I've talked to so many people on the doors in Kenmount Terrace and Mount Sion, Elizabeth Park, that you know are close to graduating, want to stay here, still don't have a full-time job offer, by the way, which is a mystery to me. You know, I'll never understand it, why we can't give every nursing student a full-time job offer. And the whole paid work terms issue, I think provincially is a disgrace. I can't use any other word for it. Using free labor in our schools, free labor in our hospitals, free labor, social work. I've never agreed with that. Our party's on the record for some time to commit to it. It's in our blue book. It's been announced. So I mean, I just think if you want people to stay in your system, stay in your province, you got to treat them with respect. And I've heard that from so many frontline healthcare workers over the past 6 weeks. And if you're starting in school where your work has no value, zero value, what does that say for people who want to stay here, work here, and join our healthcare system, work in education, work in social worker, work in frontline child protection? When we take your labor, we don't give you 5 cents for it. I can't think of a more powerful statement for a government to turn people off, turn people away, and you know, encourage people to leave our province. When you know, again, when there's no value to what you're doing. Aside from the economic part that we should be helping these people with cost of living, tuition, and all that, but if there's no value to you in what you do, well, I don't think that sends a good message.
So how does that investment work if your party gets in? How does that investment work if your party gets in?
I mean, healthcare just, I mean, the government would just, in the base budget, I guess, for the Newfoundland Health Services, provide the money, and then they could pay the work-term students. I don't think it's a huge amount of money. I don't think it's tremendously complex to do. But again, I got family that are in nursing school. It's unbelievable to me. They come home, tell stories, they're exhausted. And again, it's Uncle Darrell, why doesn't my job have value? And I don't have an answer, boy. And it's just not good enough. And then you wonder why then we're 600 nurses short, and we're still, even though all the recruitment efforts, we're hemorrhaging people out the back. Everything I hear in healthcare is the lack of respect, the lack of people listening to the frontline staff, the lack of communication. I've heard it on the doors. I've knocked probably 3,500 doors the last 6 weeks. And you hear it once, you hear it twice, but you hear it 15, 20, 100 times, the same message. We got to change. We got to do better to recruit people, train them with respect, and then hold on to them.
Thank you, Mr. Hines. Now we're on to public funding. Mr. Davis, let's start with you on this one. Is your party willing to commit to restoring funding to the university? And do you believe there are limits to what should be cut? And how would you approach balancing funding constraints with the mission of a comprehensive public university?
Thank you for the question. We provide some $400 million to the university. It equates to about 68% of the total operating cost for the university. The Canadian average is 41%. It's a significant gap there in respect to that. But in addition to that, outside of those numbers, we've committed to $13.7 million for helping Memorial's shortfall in their budget. We've committed to $7.8 million for the campus renewal fee. We've committed to $4.7 for the additions for the nursing schools. We've committed $2 million for the doctors of psychology, things that we can invest in. But one of the bigger things is the, deferred maintenance at the facility. We've got to invest in that. And we put $70 million over the next 8 years to try to help alleviate some of those issues that Memorial has had with the deferred maintenance. There's a significant amount of infrastructure at the university. There's a significant amount based on the Auditor General coming in here, significant amount of financial opportunity for them to improve on what they do from an administration standpoint. And we're going to continue to work with them to try to find solutions where they exist and ensuring that the students, we try to fund as much as we can towards the students, putting that money into the hands of the students versus giving it to the administration.
The infrastructure deficit is about $500 million, isn't it? And how much did you say?
70 million over the next 8 years.
So what does that do for getting the university where it needs to go?
Well, it's a step in the right direction. There's a significant amount of, it didn't happen overnight. It can't be fixed overnight either. There's a significant amount of infrastructure that needs to be worked on. And some of those infrastructure things could be the removal of a building, as an example, that has outlived its useful life. There's a significant amount of new investment that the university has built there. So, I mean, this is under the purview of the administration of the university. We can't direct them which buildings to deal with, but they've got to deal with some of those shortfalls. This is an issue that, the people of this province, this facility is so important to the fabric of this province. We need to ensure its success and viability for the long term.
Thank you very much. And if you need the question repeated at any point, do ask. Mr. Hines, we'll go with you for this one, 2 minutes.
Sure. Look, first thing we need to do, Mun's got to get his fiscal house in order. Those Auditor General reports were nothing but scathing. The campus renewal fee, in my opinion, was nothing but a tuition increase by another name. I mean, no doubt about it. And if you look at where that money was supposed to go and what it's been spent on, campus, we've seen pictures of the tunnels with, buckets and water dripping down on kids, asbestos buildings with staff in them and kids and everything else. Absolutely unacceptable. And at the same time, we're buying leather furniture out of the campus renewal fee. Totally unacceptable. Someone should be held accountable. I mean, it's just totally unacceptable. At the same time, when I was a student leader here in the 90s, mid-90s, when we had an executive meeting with our executive of the student union and university, there was 10 of us in the room. Now there's probably 15 executives on the university side. I just think there's too much administrative bloat. And I've heard that from students, and I just look back to student numbers in the 90s weren't that much different now. And the other thing I'll say is, the footprint expansion of the university last 10, 15 years, again, it's wonderful taking all these new buildings and something's gifted to them, they receive it. But overlying all that, in a couple of years ago, we were going to push ahead with law school. I mean, if I went home to my wife and said, look, the roof is leaking, there's water dripping down, let's build on a sunroof. You know, someone would say, or let's go on a sunroom, someone would say to me, Darrell, boy, you know, you've lost your mind. I mean, you know, let's think about what we're doing here. So before Mon gets into further expansion, they got to get their fiscal house in order. They got to stable or freeze the footprint, because I just think there's too much expansion, and all this got to be paid for. Because even if you get a building gifted to you, you got to heat it, you got to light it, you got to clean it, you got to be maintained, or you know what I mean. There's deferred maintenance accruing. So, and I expect, look, $7 million over the last number of years. That's not paying for the paint on 500 million. That's not paying the interest on $500 million.
So for a short follow-up, let's pretend they do get their financial house in order, but like, where's the limit on cuts? And when you look at what you want to see for this university, like what's the government's role in looking at what this university is going to become in a time of renewal and cuts and a way forward?
Right. And that's where I think the university community, all the university community, not just the president, not just Board of Regents, not just one or two people who dominate the other smaller groups, all the university got to sign on to a process and say, here's our priorities for the university community. And if I was part of a government and that United document came to me, I would support it. But it can't be something driven by a handful of people in the executive or one or two large stakeholder groups here that, may tend to, try to run roughshod over everyone concerns. Students got to be front and center, employees, stakeholders, everyone, current students, past students, graduates, everyone should have a say. What's the university going to look like, and what's the priorities, and then how do we get there?
Okay. Thank you. Zumba, your turn.
Can you repeat the question again?
Yeah. Oh, let me first stop, reset. Yes. Is your party willing to commit to restoring funding to the university? And do you believe there are limits to what should be cut? And how would you approach, or with your party, the approach to balancing funding constraints with the mission of a comprehensive public university?
So I'm going to address the first part of the question with an absolute resounding yes. So my party is committed to reinstating funding to Memorial University should we form government. And the reason I can say that with a resounding yes, because there are a few reasons why we would want to do this. MUN is an economic driver for the entire province. In order to have a successful, sustainable province, you need well-educated people. Well-educated people who live in the province tend to attend Memorial University. In terms of how this will come to be and why this would be important, in order to ensure that the fiscal house is in order, MUN would work, the NDP would be willing to work with MUN in order to fully look at the Auditor General's report and see where there has been bloating, as my predecessor had been talking about with the province, to ensure that they can come up with a realistic and reasonable capital assessment plan that they can actually stick to in order to have that funding restored. It has to be a conditional agreement where MUN knows what they are responsible for in order to ensure that they're able to have the funding to keep a sustainable university. And in terms of what cuts need to be made, that is not for the government to decide. MUN as a team, speaking with the coalition of unions, it's talking to the students, making sure everyone is at the table to decide what this new university needs. And I don't think cuts is the appropriate way, but how to ensure that the money that does exist in the university is directed appropriately to the areas that it's needed to be.
Follow-up question. For the deferred maintenance deficit, what's this conversation for plan on that? So you talked about working with the AG and the party, but what's the plan for spending to help with the deferred?
So I think the first thing would be looking at the plan of what the amount that is currently sitting there and what areas of the university currently need that maintenance done. As someone who attended MUN, I still regularly is here. We're looking at a MUNL system that is in complete disarray, and so much so that it is now a joke within not just this province, but a joke nationwide about our MUNL system and the MUNL juice that people are sitting with. So it is up for the university to state the things that need to be repaired, look at the money that is currently allocated and using it effectively to repair those things.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll begin with you on this one, if that's okay. So student services and offerings tuition. And if there's a little bit of repetition, I think we can explore the room more with our answers. There's lots to talk about. As a result of heavy tuition increases, students are being asked to pay a lot more for an education. But cuts to staff have meant that facilities, and this is from the unions, facilities are falling apart, students can't get the courses they need to graduate, and even fundamental student supports like the Writing Center have disappeared. How is Memorial to continue attracting students in this environment? And what role do you think government has in addressing this issue? Like, why would students come here? Ms. Umba, we'll start with you.
Well, as a student who came here for Memorial University, one of the reasons I came was Mont offered a quality education, a world-renowned quality education at an affordable rate. And that is the reason a lot of people come to this university. If it is no longer affordable and it is no longer a quality education because people are not, the university is not adequately funded, there are not enough resources for the instructors here to deliver the quality of education they intended to. It is no longer appealing to be in the province. It is no longer appealing to come to the province. It's no longer appealing to stay in this province. So that's why people come to Mont. That's why Mont needs to be, as the only university in this province, it needs to be treated with the respect it deserves in order to continue to have a sustainable province.
So you've also, I mean, you talked about funding, but when it comes to a tuition freeze or a tuition reduction, where's your party on that?
We are willing to roll back tuition to 2022 levels and freeze it there. And just before I pass the mic on, there was a statement made by Minister Davis about international students. Mont should not be built on the backs of international students. It is inequitable and unfair to fund a university on other people.
Mr. Hines, if you're up for it.
Sure. Look, I mean, the university has a tremendous reputation, and I was fortunate enough when I was a student politician to travel to a number of, national conferences, provincial conferences, Atlantic conferences, where one was always held in the highest regard. But I mean, I remember in the mid-90s when the Liberal government of the day slashed grants. I remember a devastating blow, and enrollment dropped to no one's surprise. In this environment, we had low tuition freeze for a number of years under the former Conservative government. Because I remember Daniel Williams going to a national student conference and getting an award and a standing ovation, which was unprecedented for a Conservative politician in this country. A standing ovation. But, low tuition. And there's a gentleman over here who knows the story. It was certainly warned if tuition went up, what would happen to enrollment? Significant cuts, tuition spiked significantly, and guess what happened? Enrollment dropped. Now there's a problem because, less numbers, you need less professors, it becomes a cascading situation. So I think there's no surprise, but I think there's really been a lack of commitment and political will perhaps to the university. But first and foremost, Mon has to get their fiscal house in order because, if you look at stuff's gone on the last few years, $100,000 spent on a retreat in Fogo I think that was an embarrassment. I never defended it. It's terrible. Former president's contract when that came out, up almost $500 million, we were paying for a personal trainer for. Come on. It's just a lot of money. And with those kind of perks and almost entitlements, I just think it's completely unacceptable. So, in order for Mon to move forward, they really have to deal with some of this stuff. Look within, and then you can look without.
A follow-up question, where's your party on tuition freezes or tuition reductions?
Look, we've committed to a tuition review, depending on where we're to, but with many things. One, can't be on the backs of students. Excuse me, let's be clear. Can't be on the backs of students. Students have already had their tuition go up. Enrollment's dropped. We've seen where that's got us. But we need to, one needs to get their fiscal house in order, come up with a plan, a commitment to fiscal responsibility. Then they'd sit down with a new government and see where we go. I would certainly support, again, I'll go back to, well, I tell you what, there's no greater indication of future behavior than past performance. Former Conservative government, there was tuition freeze. And I can't tell you what's gone on the last 10 years, but it hasn't been good for students or this institution.
All right, thank you. Mr. Davis.
Thank you for the question. And Memorial's a first-class, first-rate institution. We have the best of the researchers. We have the best educators in the system right across this country. It's recognized across the country. Many of the programs received accolades from everywhere internationally. So I think the memorial I love and the memorial I went to is strong in the fact that it's still producing high-quality educators and individuals that work with the students that come here. We have to ensure that the students receive the benefit from a very generous student aid package that we have put in place. We can't control the university, whether they're going to do a tuition freeze or not. The tuition is set by the university. Governments can work with with them and put the money when the university decided to have a tuition freeze and wanted to increase tuition. That was part of why we wanted to make the student aid system stronger. That's why we put some $36 million into that system so that students receive, as I said, the most generous system across the country. And leaving with an opportunity for a reduction, debt reduction of their debt from student aid, they have an opportunity to come out with zero provincial debt for student aid, which is good. Can we expand on that? Absolutely. We're working towards that. We understand that students need to work while they're going through school or want to work in some cases. Those are things that we can work with, and we've already made some changes. There'll be more coming with respect to allowing them to make more money so it doesn't affect student aid. But we really want to work with the students to ensure that that's the case.
So the part of the question where it said, cuts to staff have meant the facilities are falling apart. Students can't get the courses they need to graduate. And even fundamental student supports like the Writing Center have disappeared. The Harris Center's gone. Office of Public Engagement is gone with the most recent round of cuts. So juxtaposition that with what you mentioned about the top performing bit of the university. When you hear this and then you look to the future, where's your head? Like, what are you thinking about that? Like, what are your thoughts on that reality compared to what you just said and what the future may hold?
Absolutely. I mean, the university has the ability and the autonomous nature of the university. They make those decisions. It's unfortunate that some of those things get cut. I mean, my understanding was they shortened or reduced the public engagement office. Instead of 2 offices, they have 1 now. That's things that they're doing as an administration that we don't have a viewpoint in. I find out about those things just like you do on CBC or on the Signal when it comes up. That's when I find out about those things. So we're not involved in the room when they make those decisions regarding choices of that kind of stuff.
No.
Now, we want to ensure that the students, when those decisions are made, we try to impact those things like the campus renewal fee. We made sure the students didn't have to pay that. We put that in place because we didn't think that was a very good decision by the university at the time.
All right, thank you very much. All right. Labor conditions and staffing levels. Mr. Hines, we'll start with you on this one. So here's some context. There's been substantial job loss recently of non-academic staff and contractual academic staff. The coalition has heard from its academic and non-academic staff participants that morale is low. We've also heard about it on my end through CBC reporting. Departments are reporting that staffing levels are low enough that if staff are taking leave, like sick leave, there may be a compromise to operations and delivery to students. So that's some context for us, which I think everyone in this room more than likely already knows about. Here's the question. Given government, when engaging in the budget estimates process each year, would you be willing to engage with labor and student unions for input and ensure that you seek clarification from the university administration and staffing levels and labor conditions before determining the amounts of the operations grant? So this goes to that bigger discussion bit when it comes to budget consultations.
Sure, why not? I mean, I'll again go back to a different era. I remember Dr. Art May when he was president of the university. There was fractious times of relations with the student union, and we didn't always agree. But you know what? We came up with the thing. We'd meet once a month over a bowl of soup, but never an agenda. There was never any minutes. But their executive and our student union executive would get together around the table once a month and informally chat and talk about our issues. And let me tell you, I'm thankful to the man now because you learn more, and we got more accomplished informally over a bowl of soup than we did publicly lambasting each other, you know, that other stuff that sometimes goes on. But look, I've heard from so many staff here, because of course Mount South includes a lot of, you know, the university community, employees, that morale is at an all-time low. And look, you know, the unfortunate job action in 2023, students really suffered, I think, and felt worse than anyone. And even now, I mean, I've heard examples. I talked to a lady the other night on the doors. and she was told her contract would be renewed. And, you know, she had made financial arrangements, renewed her mortgage with a certain expectation. And all of a sudden, no, the water on the beans has changed, now your contract's renewed. I mean, this is a person, again, we're trying to get people to stay in the province, put down roots. And now she had renewed a mortgage, and all of a sudden, no, we don't have a contract for you now. Again, you know, I'll go back to something I said earlier. I think the last decade have not been good for treating people with respect, and that includes collective bargaining. I think that includes our professional associations, if I can use that language, with faculty, et cetera, per course instructors.
15 seconds.
And I hear constantly that respect matters and communication, because, you know, and I'll still think back to that lady I met the other night on the doors. I mean, to have her appointment rescinded, I mean, that to me is just not good enough.
But that comes down to university leadership. How do you influence that, right? Like, because the university is going to run how the university is going to run in a way, right? Because there's supposed to be a separation there. So if they're making cuts, people are going to lose their jobs, and the way about it is going to be the way it is. How do you have an effect on that?
Well, look, a couple of ways, I think. One, I think needs to come up with a plan involving everyone about where we're going to go and what the university should look like into the future. That's certainly number one. But we also need to be careful about meeting our obligations to the people of the province, because we only have one university. With everything, you know, that's gone on the past number of years, with morale at an all-time low, I'm really concerned that you're going to lose public credibility. And when you see, you know, $100,000 tree at the Fogo Lane, that does nothing for morale. You know, these kind of, you know, and again, the scarce dollars, we're only collecting $7 million in the campus renewal fee, and it's going to leather furniture and you know, anyway.
New president, by the way, who has read through, told me in an interview, has read through the AG reports multiple times, just to put that out there. Ms. Umba, you're up.
You good? Okay, perfect. We talked about how low morales is affecting staff's ability and instructors' ability to provide quality education to students. So the party and the NDP recognizes that. And so the one thing before I get into the depth of that is the mental health of the staff of Memorial University on every level is important in order to ensure they're able to perform optimally. We've had a government that has touted caring about the healthcare and everything. If staff are dealing with significant mental health pressures, that means they're no longer able to be in their classrooms and the offices doing the work they essentially need to do, which continues to add a further drain on other systems in our province, like our healthcare system. And sometimes when we talk about these things, we talk about them like they're isolated silos and they're not all interconnected. If we are not treating our labor force with the respect that they need and giving them the resources and the funding they adequately need to do the things they are trained to do, we are going to impact every other aspect of our province. There's no way to treat these like these separate things. And so, thank you. And so when we talk about making sure that the labor force that makes up Memorial University is able to organize and effectively advocate for themselves, it's talking about things like passing anti-SCAB legislation, making sure that they have the right to unionize, they have the right to strike. And there's a thing that came up during the political action that happened last time when Monfort went on strike, and the way the university spun it and the way the government spun it, as in that they were hurting the students. They had every right to be there to advocate for themselves, and so much so that Mansu came and stood alongside with them. So when we're talking about the morale of the people of this university, we have to ensure that we are treating them with the respect they need, giving them the resources to do what they want, and also allowing them to advocate for themselves effectively and not punishing them for that basic right.
Then do you worry that there can be too much influence from, like, let's say, an NDP government with the university? I mean, you're talking about legislation, which is completely in your prerogative for putting through, but when it comes down to staff morale in the larger level, there's only so much you're able to do, because that does come down to university leadership.
Yeah, so we're not going to be in the university running the everyday things, but it's ensuring that there is legislation that allows the university to work in its own purview, but still protects the rights of the staff within the university.
Okay. Mr. Davis, you're up.
Thank you. And I think the first part of the question will.
No, here, I'll just read it again. No, it's been a bit. If in government, when engaging in the budget and estimates process each year, would you be willing to engage with labor and student unions for input and ensure that you seek clarification from the university administration and staffing levels and labor conditions, but before determining the amounts in the operation grant. So more consultation before the budget and the operations grant.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm happy to consult, and I know we would be happy to consult with all stakeholders. It's really, really important. Memorial is the flagship of this province. We've said it, everyone here has said it, everyone cares deeply because they're here. From where I sit, the university is autonomous. They make the decisions on that, and I don't want, and I'm sure people in this room wouldn't want government coming in and meddling in the business of the university. It's not sensible to have a university that's not staffed enough to do the work that is required to take care of our students and the faculty needs as well. And I'm saddened that the faculty and educators here have had a difficult time over the last little bit. I'm saddened by that, and that's not something that I'm happy about by any stretch. But hiring, salaries, timing of contracts, length of those contracts, whether they're term or whether they're permanent, those things lie with the university, and it's part of the MUN Act. We can't, as government, I can't stand here and say, promise to the people here, as much as I would love to say that we're going to get in there and fix that part. It's Memorial has the ability and has to have the desire to fix that. I know there's people in this room have that desire to fix that, but the administration have the power to do that process, and we're going to be there to support. We're going to be there to support the faculty. We're going to be there to support all people that are stakeholders within this university that we all love and want to succeed. We don't want this to fail. We want this to be the best university in this country. We want it to, we know the students want that. We know the faculty want that. We know the administration, for the most part, wants that, I'm sure. And we've got a new president. I want to give the balance of time to try to see how she and her team does with respect to dealing with the administrative bloat that the Auditor General has done. The Auditor General has made significant recommendations about the administration of this and viewpoints into the fiscal reality that Memorial has. They need to start to work on that. And I couldn't agree more with my colleague that they have to get their financial house in order. We've been pushing them. That's why we brought the Auditor General in.
And quick follow-up question. What do you want to hear from the administration when it comes to this? Like, what are you looking to hear, or are you already hearing it, or are you not?
No, I would like to see the plan of how they're going to deal with the deferred maintenance issues they have, how they're going to deal with the staffing issues they have, what they're going to deal with the long-term planning with respect to the university. There's partnerships that need to be made with the university and the community. The university is a living, breathing apparatus in the province. It does significant economic output, as has been said before. It's a huge economic driver. That's not just from the research side. There's the students that come into this Mount Sion here in this district. It's important to the city. It's important to the students and the well-being of them as they graduate into what's going to be the next phase of their life, whether that's in the career or going into further education. Those things are things we need to work at, and I got to see, and we should all be demanding that we see that direction for the university.
Okay. Thank you. We got all three that time, right? I knew it. I knew I did. I knew I nailed that one. MUN Act and governance. The Memorial University Act establishes a board of regents, the majority of which are appointed by the Premier of the province. The government committed, so the Liberal government, committed to strengthen and modernizing the Act and to allow faculty representation on the board. The Act still does not assign dedicated seats to the faculty. So the question, Ms. Umba, we'll start with you on this one. What would your party's priority be for improving the governance of the university?
The party's view on that is for starting with supporting the collegial model of governance. So ensuring that there is representation from staff and students and faculty within the Board of Regents. If we look at it currently, there are currently 3 open seats that are not filled when it comes to the Board of Regents, which means there's representation that is missing at that decision-making table. We would also ask for a review of the Memorial University Act in order to modernize it to ensure that it actually serves the university as it is currently. We cannot be basing the act based on what the university used to be. If we're talking about a university moving forward, we need to ensure that the act supports that forward progression. of the university.
Thank you very much. Mr. Hines.
Look, in May 2023, the MUN Act received some amendments to allow the very thing you're talking about, back representation on the Board of Regents. And unfortunately, it was promised that it will be done after the, Auditor General's review, but the Auditor General's review is here and gone. There's been nothing still done with it. Why are we afraid of change? I mean, why are we afraid of having faculty, or dare I say, students on the Board of Regents, or more students? I mean, I think, again, we've been doing the same things for so long, but now the Act, again, was changed a couple of years ago. So I don't think we can be afraid of it. But whatever we're going to do with the MUN Act, it needs to be in the best interest of students. And whatever the governance structure we end up with, it got to be inclusive of everyone in the university community. And to me, that's paramount to anything we're going to do with this.
Mr. Davis.
I fully agree. We should have more representation there. That's part of the reason why that was done. It's got to move faster. There's no doubt about that. There's a few things that happened in between that. We've had obviously a president search, a new president hired, an interim president, 2 interim presidents. There's been a little bit of a flux here at the university, and I can't appreciate fully what the unions and all of the organizations that deal with the university on a regular basis are feeling. Are feeling based on that flux that's been happening. So, we've got a new president there. We've got some direction with respect to that. We're going to be pushing the president and the administration to be making those best decisions they can for the university, for the sustainability of that university or this university, and working with them in any supportive role we can, understanding that the autonomy the university has and not wanting to interfere with that. We as a government don't want to be seen as coming in and telling what courses are going to be taught and what teachers should be here and how many should be here. That's an administrative decision that needs to be made at the university, and we're pushing them and having regular meetings with them. And that's one of the things I do in any department I've ever been, is the key stakeholders, meet with them on a regular basis. Try to get them in every couple of months, if not before, even when there's no issues. And I think Darrell mentioned that earlier. A lot can be solved over a bowl of soup or a piece of cake or something like that, or just even a coffee, just to talk about some of the issues that are percolating to the top that we all can work towards fixing. Because at the end of the day, we're all invested in this university and we all want to see it succeed. There's a variety of different ways to do that, and you'll hear a variety of different ways to do it here.
Thank you. Here's a question. I did a thing back in the spring, and the question was, what does the university, or what do universities owe the public? It was with Professor Emerita Barb Neese. Ted Hewitt was down from the mainland. And it was an interesting evening of discussion. This was pre-cuts that happened. So it's been on my mind. So for this evening, for each of you, and Mr. Hines, we'll start with you on it. When you think of Memorial University of Newfoundland and Labrador, and you look ahead, right? Everything going on in the world right now, where we are, and you think about what the university owes the public and what it should owe the public as we move forward, what do you think that is?
Wow, that's a big question. Look, given our history and our unique circumstance and how this institution came to be, it's a special place because it's the only university we have. And I think when I think back to all the heated debate when the Ode to Newfoundland was removed from convocation and the public outcry, and I'm on the other side, I think it was a terrible decision, and I never agreed with it, but others got to defend their decision. But when you look at and there were some very learned people, both in the university community and outside, and postgraduates posted stuff and talked about how they felt about that. The fact that our only institution, founded, so many years ago, 100 years ago, would not even sing our national anthem, our provincial anthem at their, closing. It was very offensive to people, and some of the arguments that I can't begin to, articulate as good as people wrote them at the time. But to me, that really spoke to how special the institution is, how it has a special place in our history. So many thousands of people have come through and are in leading positions right around the world, and so many research and other outreach in the community that's been done through this institution. People that have come through. It's very special, and I think that can't be understated. When the university, and again, it got to be driven by the community, looks for how do we, we're celebrating 100 years. Where are we going to be in the next 100 years? What's that going to look like? But that, again, can't be driven by government, because governments are generally not good at it. It has to be driven by the university community, driven by all stakeholders, student center, graduates, postgraduates, trade unions, frontline unions. Everyone got to have a seat at that table. And whatever that is, then it comes to government, that vision, that strategic priority, and what we're going to look like in 100 years.
So then how much funding for a progressive conservative government, as you look ahead, how much funding should you be responsible for this future look of the next 100 years to keep things going?
Well, look, there's only two sources of money.
Yeah.
Tuition, which, government has slashed money and tuition's gone up, no doubt about it. And the taxpayer. I can tell you on the doors I've done, not a lot of taxpayers are saying I need to pay more to you, Daryl, and the provincial government for anything, because people are hurting, astronomical, the cost of living challenges, people struggling to pay rent, buy groceries and everything else. So the ability to, for the provincial taxpayer to pay more, I question. But first and foremost, you got to identify where you're going to be. You watch the old saying, you cut the clock to fit the person. I mean, I think what money you need, whether that's, whatever the number is today, 70%, it goes back up to 80 or 90, what it was in the 80s. Really, you need to see what you're going to need. But again, that got to come with, you got to start with your own fiscal house. That means bloat. And boy, you got to stop buying buildings and building buildings and talking about law schools and everything else when you're, I think of how ridiculous it is. You have a $500 million accumulated deficit. You're only collecting $7 million a year, which is not even interest on the money. And some of that is being squandered on, shrubbery and leather furniture and other food things. I mean, anyway.
Thank you. Mr. Davis, what does this university, Newfoundland and Labrador's only university, what does it owe the public as we look forward?
I think it owes the public the ability to have a top-notch educational institution, student-centric. We need a pursuit of knowledge here at the university. We want meaningful dialogue, freedom of speech. We've seen far too much south of the border taking away the rights of universities, taking away the rights of the educational institution, educational knowledge base that we have here. That can't continue, and that can't happen here in this province or this country. We need to get involved in any kind of support we can provide. But at the end of the day, I don't want to see 100 years from now, the government with their hands in the university when the university should be its own autonomous agency. They're doing what they need to do to educate our students as a memorial. We've said it, all of us have said this before, that this building stands as a memorial to those people that gave up their lives so that we can enjoy the freedoms we have. And we can't let that ever die for that reason. But we have to ensure that the educational freedoms are here, making sure that the knowledge and the pursuit of that knowledge is done by the university and the people here. Researching is amazing here at the university. I've seen it in other departments that I've been in, the investments that come from other departments in government to support things that the university is doing and doing very, very well at an international and national scale.
So the university cuts have come, more will come. What happens if things get cut? And you look at it, you're like, oh, we're not a comprehensive university anymore. And I'm just hypothetical here, but like, if you look at something like, gosh, that's too far. What happens if that happens in the next term for you, if you get elected and something like that goes on?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, working closely with the administration to try to get a stronger relationship on what they're doing in the future.
Yeah.
Like, we need to have a planned approach on this, getting their, as I've said many times at this table, getting their fiscal house in order. This is something that is a problem for everybody in this province when you hear stories about what the administration has done in the past. It's difficult to even take that and try. There's no one at our table that's ever defending the university for doing things like that. Going to, out to spending huge amounts of money on retreats. I mean, it's too foolish for words. You know, we've got a university with infrastructure that has problems. We've got a university that has a salacious appetite to purchase things. It's foolish. It's absolutely foolishness when you deal with it in that way. But the good thing about bringing the Auditor General into this process is it's open now for the public to see, which wasn't available before.
Yeah.
Now we had to change the MUN Act to do that. That they're in. The recommendations are clear. The administration has to deal with that. And my understanding is they are, and in the balance of time, I'm hopeful that they will get that fiscal house in order for not just for them and not for government, for the students that we all serve.
Thank you very much. Ms. Umba.
What I think of the university in the future and like what,
Yeah, what is Newfoundland and Labrador, the only university we have, Memorial University, what does it owe the public as we look to the future?
I'm pretty sure if I remember correctly, the slogan or the motto for the university is launch forth, if I'm correct, which means what does the university owe the province, or what does the province owe the university is the ability to do so, the ability to afford every Newfoundland and Labradorian who wants an education, who wants more for themselves, wants more from the province, the ability to get the resources to do so. I've heard over the last hour or so, we're talking about getting the university getting its house in order. I don't know about you, but I've happened to sit at negotiation tables, whether it's with the unions or just trying to get an agreement between me and my child. And anyone negotiating anything knows that when you offer something, they tell you what you will lose if you do not provide enough resources to get something. And I've listened over and over to the statement of, we can't be involved with the operation of the university. No, absolutely, that is not the role of the government. But I'm pretty sure at some point during these negotiations, the university said, if we are not adequately funded, if we do not have the resources, this is what we stand to lose. We can't pretend that that was probably never said. So when we talk about getting the house in order, yes, we have to, but what are we willing to lose? We aren't being honest of what we're willing to lose. Who are we willing to bear that cost? Is it for future generations to bear the cost of fiscal mismanagement? No, we need to be honest and hold the university accountable for what it's responsible to do, but we have to know that there is money that does exist to ensure we have a openly, publicly funded university available to the current residents of Newfoundland and Labrador and to the future residents of Newfoundland and Labrador at whatever cost necessary.
And then looking towards whether the university has to shrink a little and modernize and figure out kind of like around the world right now is doing with post-secondary education. What's the government's role in pushing that forward?
Could you repeat that? You cut out.
Just when you look at the university, like having to modernize and whether it shrinks or whether it changes, whatever, as it moves forward, then how do you see the government's role with that in pushing it forward?
I don't think it's about shrinking. I think it's ensuring that the funding that is allocated to the university is shown to be used transparently and openly, so people know where their money is going. One of the things that people continue to talk about is we talk about bloating and the Auditor General's report showing that there was mismanagement within the university. It's a publicly funded university, and with things that are typically publicly funded, there's openness and transparency in how that money is allocated. The university owes the students and the government transparency in how the money is allocated. And so we are not talking about shrinking a university. We see what happens when we shrink. We've lost our public policy office. That office was responsible for so much of what goes on in this province, not just this university. And if we continue to go on the idea of shrinking an institution, where do we stop? Are we just teaching math and science?
And it still has a corner book engaged public.
Yes, but there is so much more that's done from vital signs and all of those things, the Harris Center, the Writing Center. There's so much that we lose if we go on the process of what do we need to lose to make this sustainable. It's how do we effectively manage what we have to ensure we do not have to shrink and we can continue to provide the people of this province what they deserve.
Thank you. All right, so before we open to questions on the floor, final statement each, 2 minutes or less. Just if there's anything else you kind of wanted to bring up, this is your chance to kind of give a rehash, to deliver home a message. and then we'll open the floor for a couple of questions. Does that work? Is that okay? All right. And I assume we'll just, I mean, seeing you just finished off, and then we'll just zip down right to left. 2 minutes or less, just your final statement for folks on your thoughts on tonight's topic.
If I think about Memorial, I think I'm going to make this a little bit personal for myself for a minute. I'm here because of this university, and that is the story of hundreds and thousands of Newfoundlanders and Labradorians. They either came for this university or they stayed for this university. If we continue to treat post-secondary education as a budget line, we're going to have a province that fails in every sector, in every aspect. We cannot treat education and the access to education as a budget line. It is an inherent right that should be afforded to everyone who calls this place home, regardless if they're international students or students from here. They came here to make this province better. We need to give them the opportunity to do so and not build it on the backs of them.
Thank you. Mr. Hines.
Look, thanks to, again, everyone for coming, and I enjoyed the questions, Adam, and my colleagues for their observations. Look, I'll just go back to something more fundamental. To the people in the room, whether they're students, staff, faculty, reflect on the past decade. Reflect on the past decade. We've seen layoffs, cuts, tuition increase, less students. MUN is making headlines nationally for all the wrong reasons. Is that the plan? Is everyone happy with where we're going? That's where we need to continue on. I mean, that's what people got to fundamentally ask. Because I'm not satisfied. I mean, I stepped up this election because I'm not satisfied with the direction of the province, and I think it's simply time for a change. I can't be any more clear than that, and that's what I'm hearing on the doors from people that work in this institution, from faculty to go to this, or from students to attend, from graduates. Everyone I talk to say it's simply time for a change. We need new direction from government to support the institution, and that can't come quick enough.
Thank you. Mr. Davis, go for it.
Thank you. I'm not going to make about politics at all. It's about people in this room. I'm proud of the university that I had the pleasure of going to. I'm proud of what it's going to be in the future. I'm going to work very hard and be committed to helping the university in any way I possibly can. The administration has to do things different. There's no doubt about that. Everyone will agree with that. I'm a positive person by nature. I see the opportunity that lies before Memorial, and that only happens with everybody in this room, everybody, and the administration and thousands of other people that have alumni for here that care deeply about the university. I'll pick up on one thing that one of my colleagues said earlier, that there was a very public discourse about a decision made by the university recently, over the last year and a half. And one thing that I ran into everywhere I went was that people love this university and they're disappointed that it made a decision that either they're disappointed with that decision or they supported that decision. There was two sides to that. From my standpoint, is the university has such an opportunity that lies before us, and it only has to take that opportunity by working with everybody involved, with the faculty, all the unions that are here tonight. Thank you for being here. Thank you for what you do each and every day. It's a thankless job in many cases. And you have impacted the future of this province immeasurably. So I spoke to someone earlier that a couple of them that chose to be here to teach. That's beautiful. For them to give up their own home where they were to and other careers that they had on the go to teach here and choose to stay here. That's what we want to see in this province. And because of those individuals, there's lots of more students that are coming through this institution that are going to be better individuals as they graduate from here. And that's what I see in the future for Memorial. That's what I want from Memorial.
Thank you. All right, we'll open the floor for if there's a question or two. All right, we got one hand there. I feel like I'm at a
Adam,
lunch.
can I do a couple of fact checks first?
Yeah, sure, go for it.
Okay, Mr. Davis, the statement that the Premier made that Memorial needs to decide what it wants to be when it grows up, that was in 2021. The first AG report came out in 2023, so he was not reacting to the AG report when he said that. According to Stats Canada, the average student who graduates in this province with a bachelor's degree owes $26,400. So maybe they're getting, or they're borrowing from sources other than the student aid program, which might speak to problems with the student aid program. My question, however, my favorite government talking point is that the university is autonomous. When government's independent appointments commission appoints 14 members of the Board of Regents, and that includes the chair. And that has included people like Iris Pettin, who's now a federal senator, who's appointed federally by the Liberals, Glenn Barnes, who was a noted Liberal donor, and now we have Justin Latta, who sat on the board of NALCOR. And that Board of Regents, like you made a statement that the administration is making these decisions, but the Board of Regents that government is heavily involved in appointing approves those budgets. So my question is, what are you going to do to clean up the Board of Regents?
I guess you can go first on that one, and then we'll get an answer from each person. And, a minute to two.
Thank you very much for the question. And anytime we have an opportunity to have a conversation about improvements that we can do for the Board of Regents, thank you for the question. There's a significant number of the members of the Board of Regents that run for election. There is a significant number that get appointed through the Independent Appointments Commission. That's true. We need to make sure we put the faculty and student members that have been asking to get them on that situation. Obviously, there's things that we need to do better. There's no doubt about that. I'm not arguing that here today. I didn't say that it was in relation to the Auditor General. I said I could have been. I wasn't sure. I thought it was, but I'm staying corrected. Thank you.
Go for it.
You know, again, there was amendments made to the Act a couple of years ago to allow faculty representation. I think it's time to move on. And again, I agree with some of the comments that, you know, again, the Board of Regents took, was it a year or two to review the decision of the Old Newfoundland? I mean, would it take, I mean, if we're not nimble and fast with reviewing what, you know, what should be a fairly straightforward conversation and decision, but such as it is. But look, you're right. Some good observations there about the current board and some of the past people who were politically connected, make no doubt about that, and how they were appointed and who put them there and why they were there and all that stuff. Eyes wide open with all that. So government, you're right, put them there, and certainly contributed to some of the decisions in the past and what went on. As much as my colleague, you know, arm's length, you know, but they're lieutenant, they're cabinet appointments. And, you know, cabinet's also good with giving themselves secret bonuses and raises. But they also appoint the people to the Board of Regents, so they're good at two things. So, but you know, they can't deny their accountability for both.
Sumba.
Your question was, what would we do to make it a democratically elected process? If you're a publicly funded university, everyone should have input in who makes the decisions for the university.
All right. Any other questions?
So the president has said that Memorial is too large. And with, according to her, the direction of the Board of Regents, she has halted the search for VP Grenfell, and she doesn't know if that position will continue. I'm very worried about Grenfell. Would you commit to supporting this essential, central part of Memorial University? Will you commit to the long-term sustainability of the Grenfell campus as a full degree granting part of Memorial University?
Mr. Hines, we'll go with you first on that one.
You're absolutely right. I mean, I've traveled to Grenfell when I worked in the Department of Education. It's certainly a unique place on the West Coast, and it's certainly, you know, great artistic programs, and it's certainly an economic driver on the West Coast. And that's why we have stated that we're fully committed to keeping the Marine Institute and Grenfell and the Happy Valley Goose Bay campuses open. Because I've also heard the same thing about from Labrador that, you know, what the future of that campus may be. So I want to be clear on that. But again, you know, any other decisions, I think you got to be careful because they should be driven by the people in this room, stakeholders, and it should all be part of the strategic plan about how, you know, what the university will look like and where we're going to be in the next 100 years and how do we get there.
Thank you. Zumba.
That's an easy yes. But if to further expand on that, yes, we would be committed to keeping Grenfell and Labrador campus and the Marine Institute, not just because of the economic added bonuses they have there, but because you should be able to attend a post-secondary institution in your community should you want to, and you shouldn't have to relocate to St. John's in order to get a post-secondary education or have to do it through distance learning.
Thank you. Go for it.
Fully. I fully commit that Grenfell campus is key to the fabric of, as well as all of our campuses are key to the fabric of the university. We need to have campuses where they need to be for the people of this province, within reason, of course. You know, we've got a significant asset with Grenfell. It's a perfect opportunity to expand. I would think there's an opportunity to expand Grenfell further in different areas, whether it be in agriculture or agri-foods. There's an opportunity there at Grenfell from the time I've visited there to see opportunities grow there, as well as our Labrador campuses. You know, that is an important piece to us at the university here.
All right, thank you. Any other questions?
Back to the, well, there was a lot of talk about the autonomy of the university and about the Board of Regents. And I'd like to understand why the Board of Regents has to have any members assigned by the, or appointed by the provincial government. What is the role of the provincial government here, other than to provide funding for this institution, which is supposedly an autonomous institution, whose board, as I believe Laura Bell suggested, should be elected by the members of the university community, certainly, and alumni, and perhaps even beyond. I don't know, but why should the government have the right to appoint anybody to that board, and certainly the chair?
Is there anything to add on your previous statement? Check it. Oh, you're good? Doubling down, okay. Mr. Davis?
It's part of the Memorial University Act. That doesn't mean we can't change it. It just means I think my colleagues on the stage here with us, or at the table here, said we need to look at all stakeholders and all stakeholders having a say in what that looks like on a go-forward basis. And I think that's true. I think we really need to bring the people in. If the university wants to change the Memorial University Act, that's perfectly within their right to bring things forward for that. And then we would bring it to the House of Assembly and vote in the House of Assembly to do those things. If that meant that there would be only people on the Board of Regents that are elected by the university, I'm fine with that.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I just wonder, is there another institution across the country that does it a better way? I mean, maybe we don't have to reinvent the wheel. Maybe there's a model in some other institution where it's, you know, stakeholder representation in the community inside and outside the university. Maybe there's a model that someone at another institution is fine, is working well, and you know, we can copy that. Sometimes, you know, we don't have to try to reinvent and do something new. I mean, but I certainly hear the concerns. Because again, so many representation and the decisions of the Board of Regents over the past 5 years or so, you'd have to question.
Oh, thank you. Anyone else? Sure, one, then two, and then three, and we'll see.
I would love to also fact check. So, number one, you talk about, sorry, this is to Minister Davis. You talk about student aid as a response to tuition increases, but you cut $68.4 million from the tuition offset grant and replaced it with less than that, much less than that in terms of student aid, which does not apply to international students, doesn't apply to part-time students, doesn't apply to certain students with disabilities. So that point is moot. Just wanted to fact check that. Also, CFSNL has been asking you for a meeting for months since you started as minister. We represent students at Memorial and at CNA, and you have not answered us once. So your point about meeting with stakeholders doesn't really make sense either. Also, your point about the university autonomy doesn't make sense because when you were in government in 2017, the government forced Memorial University, despite cutting its funding, forced them to maintain the tuition freeze, which caused Memorial University to implement a student services fee and a campus renewal fee. You caused that. Your government caused that. You were in power at that time. And so you're saying that that is somehow not the case. But anyways, it is absolutely within the purview of the provincial government to enforce a tuition freeze, as the other parties have said that they would do. So what you're saying doesn't make sense. But I guess my question, and sorry if it's a bit crass, but you came here, the other parties in this election have promised things for students, have promised things for this university. So they have promised tuition freezes, they've promised tuition refunds, they've promised tuition reductions, they've promised paid work terms. You have promised absolutely nothing. The Liberal Party has promised absolutely nothing for post-secondary education. So why would anyone in this room give you their vote? Why would anybody? That's my question.
I don't know if anyone else wants to answer that question.
I mean, Ms. Umba? No, yes, sir. Go ahead.
No, thank you very much for the question. What I've committed to is what we've already done, and what we're going to announce for the university will be forthcoming, I'm sure. But as I've said many times before, we have tried to work with what we have with the university. We put in place student campus renewal fees. We put in place a student aid package that is the best in the country. We can dispute what it is and the availability of it for aspects, but there is a significant amount of money that's put into that, and it's a needs-based system. If people apply for it, we've got about 30% or so of the students that going to Memorial have applied for student aid. I could have the number wrong slightly, but it's about 30%. And of those numbers, about 90% of the need is being met. And the ones that where the need is not being met is in those higher cost programs, like at Marine Institute. There's several programs that are high diploma programs that cost a little more, and med school. So there is better we can do. We're going to work to try to make it better, but we understand that tuition is governed by the university, whether we agree or disagree. That's what it is. When they can choose to have a tuition freeze or not. For a period of time, they chose not to have a tuition increase, and we funded the difference. They chose something different as an administration, so then we chose to put the money into the hands of students.
The Muse has a question.
Yeah, I guess our question comes on the point of the tuition freeze, and it came out of a liberal government of Brian Tobin. It was a long-standing policy. In fact, there's a budget line in the funding to Memorial called the tuition offset grant. So the decision that was made by previous Premier Andrew Furey to cut that budget line tuition offset grant. So to me, I don't think that it's at all illogical to assume that if you cut the budget line for tuition offset grant, tuition will go up. Why doesn't if you think that, if the government thinks that the grants and loans programs are robust and good, why doesn't you stand behind the fact that your government caused tuition to increase? That's my question to Bernard Davis, Minister Bernard Davis.
Yeah, right.
Thank you. I can only point to the fact that the university determines what the tuition level is going to be. They determine hiring, they determine length of contracts, they determine collective bargaining. Those are things that they have the ability to determine, not us. At the end of the day, we're left to defend or not defend or stand up or fight with them over the decisions they make. I'm not happy that some of those decisions were made by them. It's disheartening, but it will be foolhardy of us to say that we're going to continue to put money into a tuition offset, as you say, when they're going to put tuition up anyway. They made the decision that tuition was going up at that time. And they said, we're raising tuition. We said, okay, if that was put in there to keep tuition at that level, that's not going to stay at that level. So we're going to put it into additional programs, whether it be the campus renewal fee to cover that cost for students, or to deal with student aid and try to make that a better system. I appreciate that there's more can be done, and I'm hoping that those things will be fixed more over time with the university through the administration side, but also through working with the university on how we can better serve those students.
A quick follow-up on the Damore Green report, the Premier's Economic Recovery report that came out, that was commissioned by previous Premier Andrew Furey. This is for all parties. That recommendation was that in order for Newfoundland and Labrador to recover economically, there needs to be a heavily educated population. Why then did the government and your government at the time choose to cut funding to the two major educational institutions when it was clear that education is the path forward from economic recovery?
Sure, and then, well, who else wants to weigh in first? And we can circle back to Mr. Davis. Go ahead.
This goes back to a statement you made earlier, Mr. Davis, where you talked about public and private institutions for post-secondary education. I don't know what the intention originally was with that statement, but when you give the option for privatization of an education system, you create an elitist system, which means if you do not have the money, you cannot adequately have a well-educated province. So in response to your question, I do not know why they cut it, but in creating a system that allows for the privatization of education, you're disenfranchising a larger percentage of your population, and you will not end up with a well-educated province, which means you cannot sustainably take Newfoundland and Labrador out of debt.
Mr. Hines, any thoughts?
The simple answer to that is they made choices. I mean, let's be clear. I mean, the government of the day clearly made choices. They picked and choose what they've implemented and drawn out of the Green Report. And this particular one, the record's quite clear. I mean, tuition skyrocketed, enrollment dropped. Now we're left to pick up the institutions left to try to pick up the pieces because, I mean, the numbers have gone down. There's no doubt about it. And exactly what was predicted has happened. But again, this is where governing is about choices. And if you look at the choices that were made over the past decade, I don't think the institution's in a better place. I don't think the students are in a better place. I don't think the faculty and staff that work here are in a better place. I've heard it on the doors. I've heard it in, the various parts of the district. I've heard it, people have written me and sent notes and all that have long, graduated from university. They really feel that, the institution's lost its way. There's been significant cuts, a lack of political will over the past decade by the current administration.
So then one extra thing for it, if the financial house is in order, would you, is your party looking at bringing back the money that was cut if things are in order for the amount that's needed? Because I'm still unclear on that from this.
Yeah, look, again, it's governance about choices. We would certainly, once the fiscal house is in order, you can have a serious conversation of what you need to run, what you're going to offer, what it's going to look like based on what your plan is. Because I'm not sure what the plan is. But I will say what we won't support is full go-all-in retreats. We won't support money being wasted on UK soccer team sponsorships, secret deals on hotels out to the airport in, secret land deals up in the Kemon Crossing for a hospital. There was a 10-acre donation one day, and the next day cost the taxpayers $23 million. I mean, the secrecy got to be unveiled. We got to try to run an honest, straightforward government to try to deal with some of these issues. But again, these are the decisions that have cost taxpayers millions of dollars over the past number of years. And that's that's something that I don't support. Some people at this table support it and signed off on it and voted for it, but I don't.
So you're working in some non-post-secondary points there, but Mr. Davis, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Fact check, I guess. I never said privatization, and I just want to be clear. What I said was collaboration and partnership. Not everybody, I know we're in the university, not everybody in this province is going to want to go to university. So there's other opportunities for them for post-secondary, whether that's in a private college system or a public college system like CNA. Those options have to be there. And partnership between the university and those institutions is not a bad thing. I was just suggesting that there's an opportunity for individuals that may want to go, that are not ready or don't want to go to university at this particular time in their life, that they could go to a private or public training institution. And if there's agreements between the two organizations or three organizations, then there's an opportunity for them to expand their knowledge. We want the most educated people in this province. And we see that as options for whether that's going to be a trade system or a trade person coming in and wanting to do something and get their MBA after, as an example. There's opportunities for us to work together in a collaborative way that can be beneficial for all. That's the point I was trying to make with respect to that.
Thank you. I think there's another question over there. Yeah.
Hi. I was just wondering where the parties stand on tuition-free post-secondary in this province. We've kind of been, dancing around this question a little bit. I know the NDP has said it's a long-term goal for them. I'm not sure if other parties have commented, but I haven't looked too much into the NDP's plan because it would take a massive amount of funding to make that happen, more funding than the tuition freeze funding. And what would that look like? Whether that means opening other revenue streams for MUN, I don't know. And if not MUN, what does that look for? What does that look like for our publicly funded colleges in this province, which arguably have a bigger presence in rural communities? Yeah, sure.
Thanks.
So yes, ideally, we would love to have a free post-secondary education system, not just a university, but whatever you choose to do post-high school, whether that's trade school, college, or university, that should be open. In terms of what we think it will cost, we're looking at an initial investment of $49 million with funding to $63 million after that. That's what we're thinking. It would start after we've balanced out everything with the budgets and all that. But the goal would be eventually to allow you to attend post-secondary without having to carry any extra financial weight so that you can enter the workforce when you want to, how you want to, without any extra debt.
Sure.
Good question. Look, we've committed right now to a tuition review, but I think ultimately we need to answer the question, what's affordable? What's affordable for students? What's affordable for the province? And how can we get there? Because I think the last number of years, the pendulum has gone back the other way, that I've talked to students I've talked to students on knocking doors on outside that have had to drop out of university, gone back to work because they couldn't afford it, despite the much heralded student aid plan. So I don't think we're meeting everyone's needs, and I don't think we're as affordable and as inclusive as we should be as the only institution in our province, only university in our province.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. Anything we can do that limits the amount of student debt that we would have for any student, whether they go to the public, private, or the university, we want to be there to try to support that. I don't think it's something that's hugely feasible at this point. I think there's conversations that can happen when we get the opportunity, as has been said many times, the university in a fiscal situation where they can be successful. We want the university to be successful. We want individuals to be able to get an education that's affordable. There's a significant amount of opportunity for individuals to avail of student aid or opportunities like that. In our college system, because someone brought it up today, there's a significant amount of federal and provincial money that goes into individuals that want to upskill or go in if they've been for improvement in the workflow or the work life. So there's opportunities there. We're going to try to support that wherever we can, and obviously that's not an easy situation every day.
All right. Thank you.
Well, okay. So my question is on student housing. We haven't seen really an increase in student housing since the 2010s. I guess the towers were the last student housing piece that was constructed here. Many would blame students for the housing crisis that we're in, specifically international students. I guess in response to the lack of housing, the university commissioned developers who are now charging around $900 a month for a student to stay there. So what is your plan, or does your party even have a plan for affordable housing for students? If they do, what is it and how are you going to get there?
Look, I mean, housing is a huge issue for the whole Northeast Avalon, right around the province. It's more than students, although I've met a lot of students in the past 6 weeks. But I tell you, I mean, I talked to a developer last week, wanted to build so many low-income housing. He's been 2 years dealing with government, municipally and provincially, on permits and regulations and all that. He said, Darrell, it's not worth it, boy. I got to give up on this and get out of my life. I got too much money tied up, too much land. So we certainly need to work with municipalities. Government got to take more of an active role in this to, for approvals, timeframes, drive an agenda, because I'm not seeing it now. I mean, I've talked to too many developers, and I mean, as much as government heroes, there's been so many housing starts. I mean, the reality is a couple of years ago, this administration, claimed they built 750 units, and when the CBC checked into it, there was only 11. So this is the kind of fact check, you talk about numbers, but we need to do a better job working with municipalities to free up land, fast track applications and approvals, and work with developers to try to get things going. And because I continue to hear it, it's just not happening.
Let's go next. Go for it.
Yes, thank you very much for the question. It's an issue. Let me be very clear right up front. International students aren't the problem for that. There is a housing shortage. We have to make sure we fix that. But that's going to happen in a variety of different ways. You've got to make it easy, and Darrell hit the nail there. In the Northeast Avalon in particular, there's problems with trying to get permits through municipalities. We've got to work and try to streamline those processes with municipalities. We have to be there as a provincial government and a federal government to invest in good projects that are going to be affordable for students and all individuals, not just students. We have to be investing with those projects and put funding that's easy, accessible, and can get out the door quicker. There's no doubt about that. That's something that has to happen.
So the housing issue, like my counterparts here have said, is an issue not just for students specifically, but for everyone, not just within the Northeast Avalon, but across the province. And so when we talk about building more units, that's great, but we also need rent control so that you can afford to stay in there. We need programs that allow for people to retrofit and update the housing that is already currently available, because there is tons of housing that's in the area, but that is below sub-living standards. So you can't expect students to live in them. You can't expect anyone to live in housing that is not safe and secure and allow them a high quality of life. So it's about giving opportunities to retrofit living establishments that are beyond living standards, putting in rent control that students who are working with lower budgets, and not just students, but anyone who's working with a fixed income or lower budget, can afford to live in a space, and then also developing more housing opportunities. So it's a three-pronged approach that the NDP is looking for to ensure that housing is equitably accessible to whoever wants to be housed.
Did I see a hand in the back? No. Feeling a hand in front of me, though. Here we go. Hi.
I'm going to ask this question now because I can feel already we're going to get questions after this session, particularly about your comments, Minister Davis, regarding kind of blending public and private post-secondary institutions. And I understand you're saying you're in favor of collaboration between those. But of course, when we're talking about private systems, we're also talking about profit, different things. I think the members of Memorial's community will want us to ask a follow-up to say, why not just extend the programs and the offerings of the public post-secondary institutions we already have, not only Memorial, but College of the North Atlantic in this case as well, rather than look to kind of put public funds towards private institutions. And I wonder if you had any thought about that.
Thank you very much. It wasn't about putting public funds into the private industry. It was about saying that there's individuals that would choose private industry to go to. And I was just trying to suggest that there's an opportunity potentially for Memorial to have people that have gotten a diploma or training in some private institution that could want to in the future, would be right after that program or years later, want to upskill and come into the university, and there could be partnerships made with institutions, provided they meet criteria, of course, to do that. It's much easier to do that with CNA. The partnerships could be made easier, I would think, because I think both administrations share the same goal of trying to provide that public funded education, right? So I think there's a more of an opportunity to get partnerships there that could be more streamlined between the two. But I was just simply saying that if someone gets a diploma or education from a private institution, I think there could be opportunities for the university to reach out to those individuals to expand on their knowledge. That was
So
the
you're
that was the
meaning,
point.
you're meaning qualifications, kind of recognition for and credit for qualifications. Thank you for that clarification.
I have a question in regards to your statement, so sorry. Typically, why do people go to private institutions? Just why would you think someone would go to a private institution? Usually people go to private institutions because they think the quality of education or the services they will receive would be better. If we had a well publicly funded system, there wouldn't be a need for people to avail of private institutions because they would be able to avail of what they need in a publicly funded system. Privatization usually happens for better services. If you can provide services to people at low to no cost, there is no reason to go where it's private.
We have no, I mean, minister's talking about privatization and what his vision looks like for what can offer it in the private sector. I mean, this is a conversation that we have no policy in that because it's not something we're actively entertaining and trying to pursue and think it's a good idea.
We're getting down there on time. Are there any other hands? Let me see. There's a hand. I'm feeling some more hands. There's a hand over here. I've been neglecting my whole right side, so we'll go there and then there. I'm sorry about that. Oh, really? Okay. I feel less bad.
It has been said that the salary, staffing, contracts are part of the decision of the administration, the university. However, we have to recognize to offer good salaries and have full staff, there is money. Like there is a need for having money, right? So if the university is not well funded, there is not going to be enough money to offer good salaries, to attract good researchers, to attract good instructors, to offer service for students. So I think that part is clear. So hypothetically speaking, university comes and shows a budget that is open, transparent, and fiscally responsible. And it says, this is what we need to offer to be a comprehensive university, affordable for the people of Newfoundland and Labrador, and this is the money that we need. So this is a very simple yes/no question. Would you party then say, oh, okay, this is open, this is transparent, fiscally responsible, I will give you the money that you need to have a strong university in Newfoundland and Labrador? So yes or no?
All right, who wants to take that one?
We said yes.
Yeah, so if you look at a fiscally responsible plan for budgeting and you're like, this is everything you need for the university for the year or for it to thrive or wherever it's going, would you then say, hey, we like this plan, we like where it's going, are you going to give the investment into it? Is that kind of like the paraphrasing of it? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if that's the strategic plan and that's what the university community comes forward, and there's no outliers, which I think is the critical thing, that it's student-centered, includes everyone, fully consulted, public process. Why wouldn't you? I mean, that's my idea of public service. That's what I think leadership is. I can't see any reason why you wouldn't support that.
Yes.
Okay. All right. And we had a question over here. Oh, that was your question too? Great minds and whatnot. All right. Anyone else? There we go. Got about 9 minutes left.
Thank you. Okay. Memorial University, it's a university where its students, around 50% of them experience food insecurity. My question is rather simple. What are your plans on addressing food insecurity? I won't just leave this specific to the university because I think it's an issue that affects is felt across the province.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, no, I think food insecurity is a major issue. What we've been trying to accomplish with respect to, I'll start with school food for kindergarten or pre-K to grade 9 right now. We're hopeful to have 40,000 students receive hopefully more than at least one meal a day that would help in the education process for those children. There's a significant amount needs to be done of lifting people out of the poverty. We've just been part of a all-party committee on basic income where we've all come to an agreement on the seven recommendations that are coming forward from that. Thank you to the colleagues on both sides of the House to try to come to a realization of what we need to do to lift people up out of that poverty level, which is important. Making sure students in particular about this is making sure they can have as much money in their pockets as possible. That's challenging considering that some have the ability to work because of their schedule permits them, some do not. That's why anything we can do to improve the amount of money that can be kept for those that may be on student support or student aid for those that are not. So anything we can do, like a campus renewal fee that puts some $500 back into the hands of students is a help. I'm not saying it by no stretch is the answer, but it is a help.
Look, post-secondary students and recent grads should be focused on, their studies, getting on with their life versus hunger and how do you pay rent and how do you pay your light bill. So it's clearly unacceptable that tuition is skyrocketed the way it has the last number of years. But I want to be clear, we won't allow MUN to balance his budget on the backs of students. As a party, the leader's been quite clear, and it's not something we would ever entertain. So, want to be clear as well. We won't allow MUN to expand its footprint any further or increase tuition. It ends administrative bloat, resolves these outstanding critical maintenance issues and develops a plan to return its focus to students. Because I'll go back to it. I don't think MUN has had a student focus the last number of years. Some that goes to the revolving door of ministers in the Department of Education the last number of years. The issues with the Board of Regents and who was on it and where they came from and how they came to be appointed, which have been talked about earlier. But look, unfortunately, we've seen an increase. We've highest food bank usage in the country. I talked to an administrator of a local food bank the other day, and they're seeing unprecedented amounts of students, working class people. They've had to extend their hours into the evenings because working class people stopping on the way home from work, and some from members of CUPE. I've talked to them. It's heartbreaking. We got to do better to try to, deal with the cost of living. And I don't think that's been a priority of government the last number of years. I know that expands more than students, but I certainly hear you. And there was a food bank here when I was here many years ago, but the demand now, they can't keep food to shelves. People I've talked to, they can't keep shelves full anymore. It's just such a demand among students, which I think is a major problem.
So food insecurity is a cost of living issue. So what is the NDP government committed to do to ensure that food security is something that's available to all Newfoundlanders and Labradorians? There are a couple of ways we plan to approach this. Increasing food production within the province, and that seems like a weird way to address that for certain people, but farming industry is a business industry, and if we're adequately able to support small businesses like small farms, it allows for more local production, which reduces the cost of actually stocking our shelves. We're working with local food providers to ensure that people are prioritizing people, not profits, when it comes to the cost of food in our grocery stores is something that is also really important to our government. And if we up minimum wage to $22 an hour, which allows students who are working, should they choose to work, actually afford to be able to buy the food they choose to buy, which helps make food more secure. We also live in we have the largest amount of food deserts within our province. Making sure that there are enough access to locally grown and available foods reduces the amount people have to spend to get them.
Thank you for that. Final question. All right, I was about to hand you my pack here. I don't know how that would have worked out for you. I'm like, here you go.
I probably don't even need a microphone, but I guess this is my opportunity. I've been president of CUPE Newfoundland and Labrador for the past 8 years, and I had the opportunity of working with the Liberal government. Consultation, 15 minutes before something is about to happen is when we get notified, and that's considered consultation. So my question, it leads a little bit to the education accord. I was a part of both accords, the health and the education, and I'll just go to the memorial part. That education accord is a brief report of what the Liberal government assigned under the Dame Moya Green report, which reeks of privatization. I stepped away from both accords, the health accord and the education accord, because at the end of the day, is about privatization. And Memorial University is one of the big things that was on the chopping block in her report. And it continues on in the education accord, because we're seeing it on a CUPE level of already of our members being laid off. You talked about members at the food bank. Sure, they're at the food bank because they have no jobs, because Memorial has taken them away from them. And we can't continue on. I'm watching the news every evening on all the elections, from the Liberals to the PCs to the NDP, on what they're promising to all of the people of Newfoundland and Labrador. So how do you propose that you are going to stop privatization in our province on public sector jobs?
Who wants to go first?
It's certainly not nothing in our policy. I mean, I remember last administration at one point give a 20% raise, unprecedented in our history for collective bargaining and unions in the province, to make up for a decade of, no raises. So it's not something, I know the minister's talked about privatization a lot. It's not something on our agenda. It's not something in our blue book. It's not something I've seen publicly espoused by the leader. I can't be any more clear than that.
Ms. Umba?
Hi, sorry about that. So we're support of passing anti-scab legislation, restoring card checks for union certification to allow workers the right to unionize, strengthening local procurement, which means you go here first, which means the local workforce, the unionized workforce, gets a chance at the opportunities before we go outside. We have the power, we have the human capital, we have the labor force. Allow them to work, organize, and do what they need to do.
Mr. Davis?
Thank you. I don't know if Darrell was at the same thing on that, but I never talked about privatization at all here tonight. I just said that there's people out there that do that work, and I wanted the students that have chosen to do that area have the ability, potentially, to partner and go through the university system. That's all I said. I never said anything. There's nothing in the platform about privatization. We haven't talked about privatization. The only one talking about privatization is sitting next to me. And I'm not saying it's in his platform. He's the one who brought it up today. I haven't talked about privatization. We're not interested, and I'm not interested personally.
All right, I think we're out of time. We're at 9. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for your interest. Thank you for coming here tonight. The last bit, I'll leave it to Bill. And thank you so much, folks.
On behalf of the Coalition of Unions at Memorial, sincere thanks to everybody, first of all, for coming out. Thanks very much to our panelists for facing the questions and being here. Thanks very much to our moderator, Adam Walsh of CBC's The Signal. Thanks very much. You did an amazing job, Adam. Thank you. Thanks as well. I'd be remiss if I didn't thank the staff, some of which are unionized, who allowed us to be here. For example, campus enforcement, unionized folks who are out making sure you're getting your free parking. Folks at the parking office who made sure we could, get that set up. Booking this room booking. Folks at CITL of my union local who were, if they weren't here today, your microphones wouldn't be working. So thanks to the staff who made this happen. And thanks as well to the volunteers of the Coalition of Unions. Not an easy thing to pull together a public town hall during a provincial election. So yeah, this has been brought to you by the Coalition of Unions. Just to let you know again who we are. We're all the labor union locals at Memorial University. We're all the student unions. Over 20,000 constituent members. And for that matter, if those students and those workers weren't here, this university wouldn't be running. But again, the mandate of the coalition became much broader. It's about the special mandate of Memorial University, a living memorial, and it's about that mandate to the people of Newfoundland and Labrador and the taxpayers and the voters. So we're biting off a lot here. So we thought this was important to have this dialogue. We hope this is just the beginning, because I think what you've seen here, it's been enlightening. And just to put it out there, it can be challenging when we're outside of an election and a government is formed and trying to have these public conversations. And I'm not directing that at any political party. And it is sometimes easier to get some traction with the opposition parties. It's kind of a natural part of the beast. But we're hoping this is just part of an ongoing conversation that's public during this election, after the election, with a focus on Memorial University and the importance of post-secondary education in this province. Thanks once again, everybody.